City Council meeting of Monday, August the 23rd, 2010. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, what's first?
Roll call, Your Honor. Council members Baker. Here. Galloway is absent. Lennon.
Here.
Piana. Here. And Mayor Covey.
Here as well, and I would entertain a motion to give Councilman Galloway an excused absence. He is out of town today.
So moved.
Support. Moved by Baker, seconded by Lennon to excuse the councilman. Madam Clerk.
Council members Baker.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes.
And Covey.
Yes as well. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Approval of the agenda, Your Honor.
Are there any changes or tweaks to the agenda that anyone would like to propose? If not, a motion to adopt as is.
Support. So moved. Second. Support.
Motion made and seconded, Baker and Piana, to adopt or to approve the agenda as is. Madam Clerk.
Council members Lennon.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
And Mayor Covey.
Yes as well. Before we move forward, we do have a guest in the audience. I want to recognize Mayor Jack Lloyd from our sister city of Hazel Park is here. Jack, nice to see you, Mayor. Would you like to speak? Are you here for an announcement of any kind, or would you like to speak at the top? Please do, sir. Yes, sir. You always treat me very kindly when I come to your meetings, so I will return the favor.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you're always at our council meeting, and I thought I'd just do you just cause and be at your council. Welcome tonight. I think it's very important that I be here. Just say welcome to you and the council, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to tell you, as an outsider basically from another city, what a great time I had here at the Dream Cruise. It was certainly an honor to be here, and I was here every day. And as you know, Ford sponsored it, and I thought that was really great too. I had a great time. It was a safe event. The city doesn't look like they had 1 million people here, but they did. It's all cleaned up, and it's absolutely beautiful. I just wanted to say thank you for putting on such an event. It was really, really, really great. It was nice to be here and be part of it, and congratulations on your last election as county commissioner for the primary. That was great. Did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Lloyd. We're always glad to have you here.
Yeah, like I said again, I spent most of my time in Ferndale for the Dream Cruise, and I was at Como's, I was at the local establishments, and I thought it was great. A lot of people here, and I heard nothing but positive things. And the police, everybody treated everybody really, really nice. The kids got a chance to look at the bikes, and I just want to say thank you very much. It was absolutely a beautiful event. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Lloyd. You're always welcome here, and as you know, our cities are working together, hopefully to consolidate at some point down the road our fire departments so that we can be more efficient with our city's funds and have great fire protection. So from one mayor to the other, our council to yours,
thank you.
We look forward to working together.
All right. I just want to say hello to everybody again. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here in the lovely city of Ferndale. Thank you very much, audience, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you again. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Presentations, Your Honor. The first one is a condolence resolution for Nelson House.
Yes, we do have that, and as folks know, we dedicated this year's Dream Cruise to Nelson House. At the opening ceremonies, we recognized his family, and with your indulgence, I will read this. Longtime Ferndale resident, community activist Nelson House, 69 years old, died on August the 12th of this year. Nelson was born on August 24th, 1940 in Northville. In 1994, Mr. House had the inspiration for an event to raise funds for a children's soccer field. The event he created has since become known as the Woodward Dream Cruise. The The City of Ferndale recognized Mr. House for his achievement by dedicating this year's event to him. Although his accomplishment in initiating the Dream Cruise is notable, Mr. House accomplished so much more in his lifetime. He was a veteran of the U.S. Navy. He was active in the Ferndale community, serving as committee chairman on 3 bond issues. He was a member of the Ferndale High School Band Boosters, the Elks Youth in Government Program, and the Kids Dreamfield Foundation. He also ran for mayor of Ferndale in 1996. Mr. House's dedication to our youth and to the community truly exemplifies the good neighbor credo that is Ferndale. His numerous contributions will not soon be forgotten. He'll be missed by many, but especially by his wife, Vanita, children Sean, Derek, and Sandra, and many grandchildren, including Ava, Mariella, Jessica, and Jimmy, his siblings, Lawrence, Elaine, Alan, Carol, Marianne, Michael, and Stephen. Therefore, be it resolved that we, Ferndale officials, do hereby extend the community's condolences to the family of Nelson House, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the family. Can I have unanimous consent?
Support.
Thank you kindly. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Presentation of the August Beautification Awards.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Get my notebook open here. Yes, we selected the August Beautification Award winners, and the commercial goes to Sam's Ferndale Grill at 21468 Woodward. This is down towards 8 Mile, and it's a lovely restaurant. They were burned down, I think, about 4 years ago, and they've rebuilt. It's a beautiful brick building. They've got cute little awnings over the window. They've got a little patio area, and they've put some flowers out in the area between the sidewalk and the street. It's a very, very attractive and busy place, very busy. I kept riding by trying to find a slow period to go in, but I was not able to do that.
Popular all the time.
Yes. And our first residential is Sylvesta Longus, and she lives at 348 East Woodland. That's a cute little brick home, and she's got all kinds of a large variety of flowers in the front there, and also between the sidewalk and the street, and all different colors. It was against the brick. It was very attractive. And the second residential is Maggie Patton, and she lives at 169 East Camborne, and it's mostly in her backyard. She's got a beautiful, beautiful backyard, all kinds of little gardens here and there, and pathways walking through. She put a lot of time and effort into it. And a couple of weeks ago, we rode around, and we had 10 blocks that were nominated for block awards, and the letters have not gone out yet, so this is a big news to everybody. We selected West Breckenridge from Pinecrest to Livernois, and on September 11th, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, we will have cider and donuts there. A letter is sent to all the residents, and they come out, and we visit with them, and the city puts a nice sign at the end of the street saying that they won. So I think it's a nice thing. A lot of people mention those signs to me, actually. Oh, we never saw those before. You know, it's kind of, I think that's a nice recognition for the block.
West Breckenridge.
Yes, but not.
It's a lovely street.
Yes, it is. And I also wanted to mention the Perennial Exchange, which is Saturday, September 25th, from 9 to noon at the Community Center. And we're going to have Lillian Dean will be joining us, and she will be having compost demonstrations throughout the event. And she's also going to be talking about, I think, some native wildflowers and things. She's got a few little things she's going to be doing while she's there, so we're all looking forward to that. And that's all for this time. Thank you.
A round of applause for Peggy Snow and all the volunteers. Helping keep our city beautiful. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Presentation by the Downtown Development Authority.
Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Always.
Always. So, Mayor, Council, everybody at home. I'm Chris Hughes. I'm the Communication Manager and Marketing Manager for the DDA. Tonight, I am here on behalf of the Organization Committee of the DDA, and I hope we all have our sense of humor intact. Well, as we kind of wind up the summer, I don't know about you, but summer as we love it is coming to an end. The days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, and the temperatures are getting cooler. They really are. And well, we all might be feeling a little bit blue about that. Perhaps wondering, what will we do now for fun? Not to worry. The Ferndale Downtown Development Authority and the Organization Committee have got a job for you. In fact, we've got several. Our volunteers make things happen. They put on events, develop new signage, organize property tours, write design guidelines, help in the office, and they are one of the key reasons downtown Ferndale won the Great American Main Street Award, which I actually happen to have in my hand.
Oh, cool.
So we finally got that. We have to... I knew I could get a round of applause for something. Anyway. Whoops, sorry, wrong button. Whoops-a-daisy. Back one. Oh, shoot. Okay. It is no accident that the city of Ferndale has become one of the most popular and desirable places in southeast Michigan to live, work, and play. The magic that is Ferndale is the result of the dedication and spirit of the diverse population in the city that gives of its skills, talents, and creativity. That was from Mayor Craig Covey.
Great quote.
And,
You must want something tonight.
Yes, Mayor Covey, you did indeed acknowledge the spectacular and essential role of volunteers in downtown Ferndale. And even though the summer season of hoopla is winding down, there is much more work to be done. Take a look at the DDA organizational chart, and you will see that much of what gets done in accordance with the Main Street program that governs our downtown gets done by the stakeholders, the people who live and work and play here. Of course, the staff does do a few things, but everything in blue there is accomplished by volunteers. And as we move, for example, the Preserve America, which is our wayfinding program, we have about 1,600 volunteer hours that we have to put in on that. The DIY Street Fair and the Ferndale Funky Art Fair, we need about 40 volunteers to man our information booth on Woodward. The DDA Property Tour, which is coming up, we need about 20 volunteer hours for that. And the Holiday Ice Festival is about at least another 100 hours of volunteer work. And quite possibly, if you don't want to do any of that, you can also do any of these. Enter data, update the business list, take pictures, write articles, design brochures, develop a fundraising campaign, monitor trash, conduct visitor surveys, create events, organize events, volunteer at events, decorate the DDA window, visit merchants, hang posters, participate in community forums, recruit volunteers, and quite possibly, after tonight, create fascinating and insightful PowerPoint presentations for City Council. I have to give them a minute to see it. With all those tasks, the DDA means that the DDA needs creative thinkers, energetic finishers, passionate doers, fun-loving fans, enthusiastic cheerleaders, and hometown favorites who want to make a difference. And you can write your own kind of job description. You can chair a committee or be on one, be director to direct someone else, determine what work needs to be done, then do it, or recruit another volunteer to accomplish the task, volunteer a little or volunteer a lot. Besides changing your world, there are also some direct benefits. This statistics on volunteering says that these are some reports that volunteering has improved their physical health and fitness, that if they volunteer more than 5 times a year, it helped them lose weight, that more than 60% of those volunteering says volunteering helped them feel less stressed. We could all use that. Employers highly regard employees who do volunteer work, think that they can learn new skills and have a better chance of promotion and earning a higher salary, and believe that volunteering adds essential skill to their workforce. And then an interesting little fact is that nearly 10% of both the men and women who were volunteers responded that volunteering has improved their very private life, which I thought was fascinating. I thought I'd share that. So if you're trying to find something fun to do or just trying to find yourself, you can follow the words of a great leader, this one. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, said Mahatma Gandhi. Or you can follow our own leader. Join your friends and neighbors in improving the quality of life in our little corner of the world. The DDA can help you channel your talent into activities in our downtown throughout the year during festivals, art shows, and many other promotional events. So raise your hand and we'll help you channel your talent, your energy, your enthusiasm. Satisfaction is always 100% guaranteed, and good times, well, it's almost always more fun than not when you're doing a volunteer job with the DDA. So call us, 248-546-1632. Connect with us on Facebook, Downtown Ferndale. Send us an email at info@downtownferndale, and always stay connected at www.downtownferndale.com. The volunteer season is here. We hope you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice presentation. The next event coming is DIY.
DIY, September 17th, 18th, and 19th, and Ferndale Funky Art Fair. We have a property tour after that. We have the film festival, which is actually a third party doing that, but that's coming up in early November. We have trick-or-treating in there. We have a whole lot of things going on, plus our wayfinding. So there's lots of ways to get involved, and I highly encourage people to make a difference in your downtown, because you surely can. Thank you.
Thank you. And volunteering there might help your sex life. Is that what you were trying to say?
You know, I was astounded to find that, but I thought I should include that in that report.
That may bring you a whole slew of new volunteers.
I'm thinking.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Call to the audience, Your Honor.
The call to the audience is the section of the meeting where anyone in the room is able to speak on any topic they wish other than what's on the agenda. So things that are on the agenda later and you wish to speak about, you'll hold off. But if you'd like to speak on other issues, you may do so now. We ask that you keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less. You share with us who you are, verbally or written down, where you live, who you are. And we ask that you respect the integrity of individuals, not make any personal attacks. And that's it. So, who'd like to speak tonight? Terry Wells? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Leslie Coxon. I live at 169 University Street here in Ferndale. I'm here on behalf of the FDSC to present this month's Green Tip, which is how to go back to school green. So number one, make a list of what you need. You may have items left over from last year that you can still use. Number two, when looking for backpacks, folders, notebooks, and writing utensils, choose ones that are made of recycled and non-PVC materials. Also choose to support companies that are committed to stopping climate change through their business practices. Before you buy, you can check out each company's scorecard at climatecounts.org. Number three, purchase refillable pens and pencils to reduce waste. Number four, look for the Forest Stewardship Council or FSC label on pencils and paper products. The Forest Stewardship Council certifies wood and paper products grown in forests that are responsibly managed. Number five, as with all purchases, choose products with least amount of packaging and avoid plastics if possible. Number six, print on both sides of paper and recycle it when you are through using it. Number seven, this is my favorite one, pack lunches in reusable lunch boxes and reusable sandwich bags. New companies on the internet are offering cool alternatives to disposable products. Check out planetbox.com, which sells stainless steel lunch boxes with molded compartments for food, and then there's cute customizable magnets you can put on the outside. Or try lunchville.com, which carries several brands of stylish and conveniently designed reusable lunch products for all ages. Also remember that when you pack your lunches, try to choose organic foods. Number eight, don't buy plastic bottled water. There are several different styles of reusable bottles that are handy, including designs that can clip to your backpack or fit in with your reusable lunch boxes. Number nine, if you are upgrading your computers or cell phones for the school year, recycle the old models. You can drop off old electronics at retail stores that recycle like Best Buy or at Sakura with an appointment. You may want You may also want to consider extending the useful life of your electronics by donating them to organizations that will refurbish them for people and charities that need them. And finally, number 10, walk, ride your bike, or carpool to school. To get more information on Going Back to School Green, you can attend our next Green Tuesday on September 14th at 6:30 p.m. at the Kulik Center. To read this and other green tips, visit the City of Ferndale website in the Community section under Environmental Info. Green tips are also posted at the fvsc.freeforums.org website in the public forum. And finally, you can join the FVSC Facebook group to get reminders and information on all upcoming events. Thank you.
Another option to volunteer, right?
Oh, yeah, another option.
Thank you, Leslie. Nice job. Good evening.
Mayor, Council, Aaron Redish, Stratford Road. I'm wondering if the Vacant Properties Task Force has been formed.
It's a good question. Councilman Galloway's brought that up. Any response tonight, or?
No, there's been no further action on that yet.
Well, we formed it, right? It just hasn't met, or?
Right, there hasn't been a meeting of the whole, but the departments are still working together on those issues.
Okay. When will it be brought into action?
As soon as I can get to it.
Okay. Okay. I mean, it's just I brought it up 3 months ago, and you know, it needs to get going. I mean, this problem's not gone away. So, if council could push forward on this, I would really appreciate it.
This is the Vacant Property Task Force.
Exactly.
And are there any particular properties that you're concerned with that you'd like us to be aware of?
No, I think
cutting grass or
no, actually, I mean it's more than just kind of the you know, cutting grass or making sure the windows aren't broken. It's kind of a larger. I think, you know, the city needs to think kind of the meta here. You know, making sure police patrols are organized, contacting real estate agents, contacting neighbors, contacting the energy energy department, so we can keep electricity in some of these homes, to keep lights on, et cetera. I mean, it's these larger things rather than just kind of smaller single properties. Thank you.
Very good, Mr. Redish. Thank you.
Sherry A. Wells, 315 West Troy Street. This is not about the noise ordinance. You're dealing with that, and we are feeling that the DDA and the City Council are finally listening to us. So that is quite a relief. Recently, I was honored by the Citizens for Fair Ferndale, though as Francine Hatcham told me, they didn't have time to read the whole list of the volunteer work I've done since I moved here 22 years ago. They had 10 people to honor. They've honored about that many every time, and I don't think Ferndale will ever run out of people to honor for the volunteer work that's been done. Did you know that the people on Withington, just west of Woodward, are stockpiling quarters so that whenever they have visitors, they can put the quarters in the parking meters on across the street? Because those parking meters, and the city has put dozens around the central business district for all of this influx of customers, are not being used. Those people are parking on the residential side of Withington first so that the residents have to pay parking for their guests. I learned that while I was circulating the noise petitions, and I've learned of other concerns of other people, and I promised them that I would bring them to your attention. We have others on Allen, past the Saratoga corners onto Albany, that are talking about the loud people going down in the middle of the morning down Allen Street, yelling and screaming when these people are trying to sleep. We have several houses down from Allen on West Troy. A woman called the police about 3 men urinating on her front lawn, and the police were able to come in time to catch one of them and ticket him. We were speculating as to whether indecent exposure gets them on the sex offenders list or not. My experiences in the past 2 weeks. I was awakened in the middle, 1:30, 2:30, I didn't look at the clock, by heavy chains being dropped on the pavement by a tow truck that was towing a white convertible that was apparently parked on the no parking fire lane side and going in the wrong direction to boot. The police officer acknowledged that I was on my front steps when he was supervising that towing. I went back to bed, and a short time later, I don't know how much later, I heard a woman shrieking. I had to assume it was the owner of the white convertible, finding her car gone. This past Friday morning, 2:15 in the morning, there were 3 males on the corner yelling at each other, one of them yelling at one about how he's messing up his life, or whatever word he used. And, that was a few minutes, that was Saturday. Friday, okay, the 3 males. It looked like they weren't ready to disperse, so I called the police, who got them to disperse, who apparently, as one of them told me, the one who walked across the street and down our street, when I told him, "You woke me up," he said, "Yes, the officer told us that, and I'm sorry, ma'am, I just got off work." I said, "You work for Rosie's?" He said, "Yes," and he had one of their black T-shirts slung over his shoulder. Within a few minutes of that, I'd gone back to bed, and then a few minutes later, 3 other people walking down our street going west, and I yelled out, "Shut up," and I heard back in a female voice, "You shut the F up, B." You may fill in the blanks. The next morning, Saturday morning, 4:18 a.m., and for the next 2 hours, there was a car alarm going off. I didn't call the police the first time. It rang for at least a dozen times. I didn't count. But within the next hour, it went off again. I called the police, but it stopped before the car was able to get there, and they came pretty fast. And then the minute it started, the third time, I called the police, and he was able to get there to hear it himself. He looked it up and said, "This is someone who lives on the other side of Woodward."
Mrs. Wells, you're after 3 minutes. Are you able to wrap that up or share any?
There's a few more incidents, so just take it from me, there are. And what we need, and we need it now, is residential permit parking only. One of our residents was told, "Well, you don't own the streets," but as I recall, we're still paying on the millage that paved these streets. So we need residential permit parking. We resisted that a long time ago, but there's just no choice right now.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for your sharing for all of that.
My pleasure.
Would anyone else like to share tonight? Madam Clerk, next item, please.
We are to the consent agenda, Your Honor. Item A, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held August 9th and the special meeting held August 10th. Item B, approval to lease one 2011 Ford Ranger and one E-150 Ford cargo van from Enterprise Leasing Company and to charge the annual cost of $8,148 for both vehicles to the Vehicle and Equipment Fund, equipment rental, account number listed. Item C, approval of the addendum to the Advantage Services Agreement with Siemens Industry, Inc. to provide certain preventative maintenance services to the HVAC equipment at the library and to charge the first-year expense of $3,500 to the library building maintenance, account number listed. Item D, approval of a license agreement with Cantina Diablos for use of city-owned property for landscaping. Item E, approval of the license agreement between the City of Ferndale and Dinos for the use of the Ferndale pedestrian alley on September 22nd, 2010. Item F, approval to increase fiscal year ending 2011 Police Department expenditures by $6,120 and authorize the Police Department to hire a part-time evidence clerk. Item G, approval to increase fiscal year ending 2011 Police Department expenditures by $21,312 and authorize the Police Department to hire 4 part-time school crossing guards. And item H, approval of the bills and payrolls is certified by the City Manager to be paid subject to review by the Council Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Well done. Which items would folks like to pull for further discussion?
I would move to adopt the consent agenda in its entirety.
Support.
Motion made and seconded, Baker, Piana, to adopt the consent agenda. Discussion on that? Madam Clerk.
Council members Piana.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
And Mayor Covey.
Yes as well. That passes 4-0. Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Regular agenda. The first item is consideration of road closures for the Fall Fun Fest.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Bruner, are you going to introduce this?
I'll invite Jill Stricker from the Recreation Department to do so.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jill Stricker from the Recreation Supervisor for Ferndale Recreation Department, and each year we host our annual Fall Fun Festival. This year will be our 29th year, and new this year we are joining forces with the Ferndale Chamber to bring the event out on Hilton. The event will be Saturday, October 23rd from 3 to 8 p.m. In conjunction with this event, we are, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation will also be hosting a 5K run that will start at the Woodward Avenue Brewery and will travel through Ferndale and down Hilton. We are requesting the road closure of Hilton from 2 to 9 4-hour event, and also the run as well.
Very good. Thank you, Jill. Any questions from the council members?
This is the same closures as last year, correct? There was closures last year?
I don't believe
For
so.
this?
Okay.
And this is for hay rides and things, or?
Hay rides, we're going to have pony rides. The businesses along Hilton, participating businesses will be having candy for the kids to trick or treat and participate.
Great. Go ahead.
It's different from last year, but it's fine.
All right. If there aren't any other questions, thank you, by the way. Any motion?
I move to approve the road closure of Hilton between Camborne and Mapledale on Saturday, October 23rd, between 2 and 9 p.m. for the Hilton Fall Festival.
Great. Seconded by Councilwoman Baker, motion by Piana. Any discussion? Would you give our regards to the director? She had some, she was off. She doing okay?
She's doing great.
Very good, thank you.
Pass that along. Thank you.
All right, any discussion on that?
I have a couple of questions. I just want to know, have you asked a lot of the businesses along there to support the closure? Just was wondering from the chamber if there's any, was there any concerns addressed?
I know we are still.
The chamber is here. That was amazing, Melanie.
I know.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Rosenberg, Executive Director of the Ferndale Area Chamber. To answer that question, we have not had a chance to reach out to every business yet along Hilton Road, but a lot of the businesses are already closed on Saturdays. We do have great support from several of the businesses, at least 20, that are going to be participating in the decorating of their businesses, passing out candy, and so forth, and several that will be allowing us to use their lots for some of the activities that will be taking place. But we have not had a chance to reach out to every business. Specifically, we do want to double check with Subway, Little Caesars, some of those that will be closed, but we also feel they'll benefit from the additional foot traffic that will be there that day.
All right, thank you.
Sure, they probably love it. Hilton Road. Okay, any other questions or discussion on the motion? Then, Madam Clerk, if you may.
Councilmembers Baker?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Mayor Covey?
Yes, passes also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Both for coming. We look forward to that Fall Fest in October. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Regular agenda item B, consideration of appointments of Provisional Chief Sullivan as probationary fire chief and Provisional Chief Collins as probationary chief of police.
Okay, Mr. Bruner, will you help us along with this one? Why don't we do one at a time?
I'd be happy to, Your Honor. Back in April, Fire Chief Roger Schmidt retired as part of the city's voluntary separation program, and the council appointed Fire Captain Kevin Sullivan, the interim chief. Since that time, Mr. Sullivan has passed an assessment center, and the council conducted an interview in July, and so the next step in that appointment process is now for the council to make the probationary appointment. Similarly, with Police Captain Collins, Chief Kitchen retired on July 30th. He was appointed interim chief effective July 1. He was also interviewed on July 12th, and the next step is for the council to make the probationary appointment. And I believe both gentlemen and several members of their families are here tonight.
Yes, very good. All right, we'll start then with any questions from the council table. Requests for information. Otherwise, if there aren't any, then Chief Sullivan, would you mind coming up and just letting the audience see you once again? We all know you, of course, but this would be cool. Anything you'd like to share before we...
No, I appreciate the opportunity to serve the community.
Then I would be looking for a motion.
I'll move to appoint Provisional Fire Chief Sullivan to Chief of the Fire Department, consistent with Civil Service Rule 5, Section 2.
Support.
Motion made, seconded, Lennon and Baker. Discussion. I think you'll make a great chief.
I have a lot of faith, and I look forward to working with you.
Same here.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Council members Lennon?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Mayor Covey?
Yes, that passes 4-1. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And
Kevin, Pat and Glenda would be awful proud of you.
yes, they would. And Chief Collins, do you mind coming up front for us? I'm sure you'll be up here again, but just let the folks see you again. And I'm sure they all saw you working hard at the Dream Cruise.
Sure.
Anything you'd like to share?
No, I just want to make sure that you know that I look forward to working with all of you to make the department the best that it can be. And thank you for all the consideration that has gone so far into this process.
Absolutely. So folks know we've been interviewing and we've had lunches and meetings, and I'm very excited, very, very pleased. Then a motion. Is there a motion for the police chief?
Absolutely. I would move to make a probationary appointment of Provisional Fire Chief Collins to Chief of Police, consistent with Civil Service Rule 5, Section 2. Support.
Motion made Baker, seconded by Piana. Any discussion?
Just, Your Honor, I think Council Member Baker meant to say police chief. I think she said fire.
Did I say fire? I've reassigned you.
Surprise.
I wasn't even listening that close. All right, we know. He's got the
Police
black
Chief
uniform
Collins.
on. Police chief, Madam Clerk.
Council members Piana?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
And Mayor Covey?
Absolutely. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't know if most people know, but Tim's dad was a police officer with the Ferndale Police Department many, many moons ago, and your parents would be awful proud, too.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Chief. Next item, Madam Clerk, please.
Do we need to do the third part of the motion?
I'm sorry.
That would be the important part. I would also direct the city manager to negotiate employment agreements with both chiefs. Support.
Didn't see that coming. Sorry.
Okay.
Motion made, Baker, seconded Piana, to instruct the manager then to continue on with that process, bring us agreements. Discussion? Madam Clerk.
Council members Baker?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Mayor Covey?
Yes, thank you. That passes unanimously. Now, next item.
We are down to regular agenda item C, consideration of a financial planning committee.
Yes, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Brunner to start this process.
Thanks, Your Honor. Back on July 12th, at the regular city council meeting, I presented the council the city's long-term financial plan, including expenditure and revenue forecast for the next 3 years. There was some initial discussion of millage options. The council had several questions about those options, and I came back and provided additional information at the regular meeting on August 9th. At that time, we began discussing the possibility of creating a community advisory committee to look at the city's financial situation and provide the council with recommendations regarding ways to balance the budget in the future. As best I can tell, the city has a long history of these kind of citizen advisory committees dating back to at least 1984, when Bob Porter and 4 other residents were appointed to what at that time was called the Fiscal Planning and Budget Administration Advisory Committee. More recently, the council appointed a Fiscal Review Advisory Committee in 2005. That committee wrapped up its work in 2007 by conducting a benchmarking assessment of comparable communities. The purpose of this committee would not to go back and redo what's already been done, but build upon that 2007 benchmarking assessment, build upon the work that was done in this year's budget process, and add to it. Unfortunately, the timeline is pretty short. In order for the council to put a ballot, a question on the ballot, if that's the route that the council wants to go, it would have to act in November in order to place a question on the ballot in February, or would have to act in February in order to place a question on the ballot in May. So presented for your consideration this evening is a resolution that would create what I call the Financial Planning Committee. It would create a committee of 8 to 12 members. The intent here is to try to make a committee that's large enough to represent a broad cross-section of the community, but short enough or small enough to conduct its work within just the next couple of months and provide some, at least preliminary recommendations to the council in November. The composition of the committee, a majority would need to be voters and a majority would need to be property owners, but there is an opportunity to appoint some people that are neither. If you had some kind of
business owner?
Well, yeah, a business owner would not be a voter but may have interest in property. A renter may be a registered voter but not a property owner. So I've tried to outline a framework that is specific enough in order to get going quickly, but also flexible enough to allow the council to appoint a diverse group from among the committee. We have begun receiving some applications already. I think 2 or 3 folks have formally expressed their interest. Others are discussing it informally. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Let me ask you a couple. Of course, all these meetings would be open to the public at all times.
Yes, this would be, it would not be a public body empowered to make any decisions, but they would be open to the public, and all their minutes would be public records.
And the meetings, there'd be multiple meetings, probably different times, different locations to accommodate different abilities, day, evening, weekend, perhaps.
Yeah, the meeting dates and times will be up to the committee to set. I can tell you now that given the tight timeline, it's my intent to try to meet with the committee on a weekly basis to provide them with the information that they need to conduct their work. The committee certainly won't be staff-driven, but it will be dependent on the staff to provide a lot of the information that they'll need to review.
Okay. What other questions or requests for information do members of the council have?
This committee has members volunteering their time. Bob, can you provide an estimate of hours you think a volunteer will have to invest in order to be on the committee?
Well, if the council is able to appoint committee members on September 13th, and it has just until the first week in November to give council some preliminary advice, then it would be my goal and my hope to meet with the committee on a weekly basis for that 2 months, probably on Wednesday evenings, because that's when I'm available. But aside from meetings, there's also a lot of information that committee members will have to review on their own time, the city's budget documents, other reports that have been generated, the 2007 assessment that benchmarking study that I mentioned. So it'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 8 hours a week.
Between meeting time and research?
Yeah, 2 or 3 hours for a meeting each week, and then about the same 2 or 3 hours. So I guess that's 4 to 6 hours a week for 8 weeks.
Could be that. I mean, it might not be that many. People might read faster than that. But Mayor Porter, anything you'd like to share?
Just a question, since you're doing questions at this point. Have you set it up in such a fashion as to isolate it so that the committee is free to work as an individual citizen committee, not directed by the city, but given information in order to help make a fine decision?
Yeah, the charge as laid out here, it it charges the committee with reviewing, at a minimum, the 2007 benchmarking assessment, the budget presentations that we went through earlier this year, the long-term financial plan presentation that I gave in July, and the follow-up presentation that I gave August 9th, and then any other public records it deems necessary. So the committee really has to decide what it needs to do in order to ultimately prepare its recommendations. So how it goes about its work, when it does it, is really up for the committee to decide.
Thanks.
Through the chair?
Yes.
I have another question. How will the city notify the residents and businesses about the public hearings and public forums? Is there going to be, is it up to the committee to help promote it, or is it the city incumbent to take the action to notify residents about the forums?
Well, the staff would do whatever the committee found helpful. If it was going to have a public meeting or a public forum seeking public input, we could use the city's website, our cable channel, news releases, anything else to help publicize those meetings.
And one final one, how do people apply or express their interest to the city that they wish to be on the committee?
You can download if you're interested, there's a application for appointment to boards and commissions on the city's website. I think you click on resources and forms. There's a page that has links to several city forms, and under the city clerk's office, there is an application for boards and commissions. So that has some general questions about your, name, contact information, things of that sort. And so, as I've said, we've already received a few of those, and anyone who is interested should fill that out and submit it to the clerk's office.
You can also pick that up here at City Hall, correct?
Yes, hard copies are also available at the city clerk's office.
Mr. Brunner, will you, or would we tonight even be able to appoint a chair, or does that come later?
That's entirely up to the council.
I haven't seen any applications yet.
Yeah, there's been a couple, 2-3 applications we've received so far, but I don't have those with me tonight.
Any other questions, Councilwoman Piana?
Yeah, would we approve or select the people to appoint to the committee at the next meeting, or how long is the application process?
Yeah, it was my intent to have the council make the appointments on September 13th, which is actually 3 weeks from tonight instead of the normal 2. There's 5 Mondays in August. So we have a little extra time before the next council meeting to recruit.
And one more. I guess I had to keep more. And what is council's role other than appointing members to the committee to participate with this committee? Our role is limited, is my understanding, right?
Well, it's up to the council whatever the council may want its role to be. But as I've drafted this resolution, there's not a specific council member liaison to the committee or on the committee. Certainly the council can attend the meetings, but there is no formal role. If the committee itself wants to hear from the council or council members on specific issues, then the council may react to those kind of requests. But on the front end, there's no formal role for the council.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brunner, and again, the main focus here is for this committee to give grassroots input to us with regards to possible millage, amount, kind, date, correct?
Yeah, it's really even broader than that. What I've prepared says prepare recommendations regarding specific expenditure reductions and or revenue increases. So I don't think the word millage even specifically, it's not in that part of the charge anyway, although that's obviously the number one largest revenue increase option. But the committee will, have the ability to look at millages or whatever other options that it feels are worthwhile.
And it's our intention to get a broad-based representation from the community so that it's not just people who live in this neighborhood or people who are anti-tax or people who are all liberals. We want a broad representation of all facets of community so that we can get a true representation for feedback to then perhaps have, if not a united front, at least a consensus on how the city could move forward.
That's correct. And based on the conversations that we've had at the council meeting, I think you've pretty accurately articulated what's been discussed up to this point. Is this is not a committee of experts, people who are learned in tax or finance, but a committee of, Ferndale friends and neighbors who are wrestling with the city's budget issues and, trying to decide what kind of city government they want to have in the future.
But we certainly wouldn't discourage anyone who has knowledge or information or has experience with city government, taxes, spending, budgets, to come, because their expertise would be helpful.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wouldn't well, I'm sharing my opinion, but don't be afraid to become part of this just because it might be 6 or 8 hours a week. It could be that much, it could be less, depending on how astute and how quick folks pick up the information. If people have been paying attention all along through the myriad meetings we've held and all the newspaper articles, if you read the papers, you know what's going on, then you're partway there. Other questions, either of you council members or the audience? Any questions on this issue, or how about a motion?
I would move to create and establish for the City of Ferndale an advisory committee to be known as the Financial Planning Committee, which shall provide policy recommendations to the City Council on financial issues. The Financial Planning Committee shall not be empowered to perform a governmental proprietary function and shall function according to the duties enumerated in the city manager's memo of, what's the date on here, Bob? August 23rd, 2010.
Support.
I'm not reading the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Motion made and seconded, Baker and Lennon. Discussion. Again, I encourage people to consider becoming part of this. This is where we will use expertise to move forward in the next year to determine whether or not, or how we are going to weather the continuing economic storm, and whether or not we may want to go to the ballot for any millage. So do not hesitate if you're interested, especially folks who've done this before. We've had blue ribbons before. Former Mayor Porter ran the bond campaign back when we voted to repair the roads and the water lines and such. All right, any further comment? Madam Clerk?
Council members Lennon?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Mayor Covey?
Yes, passes 4-0. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Regular agenda item D, consideration to appoint a council representative and alternate to the Michigan Municipal League annual meeting.
Yeah, this doesn't really need introduction. This is where we appoint a rep and an alternate to go to the annual municipal league meeting. I haven't talked to anyone, hoping someone else has. Any
May I
thoughts?
ask if anyone's planning on attending?
Well, I'm interested in attending, but I'm not sure our travel budget allows me to attend based off of the reductions we've made to the city council budget.
I think if this is in Michigan, I think there is.
Dearborn.
It's no problem with mileage to Dearborn.
What's also the registration
I can
fees?
confidently say that. I think there still was a minimal travel budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, that is not an issue. Would you like to attend that conference and be the? I think you would.
I would.
And then I'd be happy to be the alternate if you wish. Is there a motion to same?
I would move to appoint Councilman Piana as the voting delegate to the Michigan Municipal League annual meeting and Mayor Covey as the alternate.
Support. Motion made and seconded, Baker and Lennon. Discussion. Well, this meeting's just churning along. This
Thank
is
you.
good. Madam Clerk?
Council members Piana?
Yes.
Baker? Lennon?
Yes.
And Mayor Covey?
Yes, yes, as well. 4-0 passes. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Regular agenda item E, consideration of ordinance numbers 1096, 1097, 1098, and 1099 pertaining to medical marijuana.
Thank you. Mr. Brunner, will you start, and then we might want to hear from his
A cast of dozens tonight.
Cast? Okay, good. More the merrier.
Just to give you the background, on June 14th, the council enacted a 3-month moratorium on the licensing of medical marijuana businesses in order for the city to consider how to best regulate them. On July 26th, the city attorney provided the city council with a report on the various options, including some draft ordinances. Last Thursday, and at that time, the council referred the matter to the Plan Commission for their input. The July Plan Commission meeting had already passed, so it didn't go to the Plan Commission until last Thursday, the 19th. At that meeting, which lasted several hours, and Councilmember Baker and Community Development Director Scheer can help provide the details on that. But the Plan Commission did consider the proposed ordinances, did suggest a number of modifications. The city attorney has prepared revised ordinances which incorporate those modifications. You should have copies of those at your seat tonight. And so tonight, the council can decide to adopt the ordinances without the modifications as they were presented the first time, with the modifications as proposed by the Plan Commission, something in the middle, or postpone consideration until the next regular meeting, which is September 13th. If that is the council's choice, then I would ask you to affirm that that 3-month moratorium, which was enacted on June 14th, shall stay in effect until September 14th, which is the day after the next regular council meeting. Or the council could expand the moratorium for some other specific number of days if that's not suitable for the council.
All right, well, let's try and figure out the process here tonight. Thanks for that introduction. We have the consideration of 4 ordinances. And we heard your introduction, and we can adopt any or all or part of them. Are these 4, these are the ones from the Planning Commission?
The 4 that were at your seat tonight,
today,
yes. Yep.
Via the city attorney's input, correct?
That's correct. The city attorney drafted them based on the Plan Commission's request.
Okay. Well, I won't go to the city attorney yet unless there's specific questions for him. And I guess we will hold off on asking Ms. Scheer to speak unless there are questions that pertain to her. Actually, let me ask one of Ms. Scheer. Ms. Scheer, I assume you were at the Planning Commission meeting that was just the other night, and that was a lengthy meeting, I'm told. About 4 hours?
Yes.
Okay. So that was not a rush-through meeting. That was a long, deliberative meeting.
Yes, it was.
And the recommendations that came from the Planning Commission, were they relatively, I could ask Councilwoman Baker this too, but were they relatively unanimous, or did they reach consensus?
Yes, they did. There was enough debate on each of those issues that everyone felt comfortable with the recommendations.
And are you, as the staff person most largely involved in this area, also more or less content and or okay with these recommendations?
I will enforce what council adopts.
Okay. And if in the future we wish to make any changes, either to broaden or to restrict, or to make changes in depending on how the issue plays out over time, we could certainly make more changes.
Of course.
All right. What questions do members of the council have for the city manager, the CDS director, or the city attorney? Go ahead.
I have a question that was raised by someone in the audience, so he's welcome to come up and ask it himself. No, where'd he go? Where's Mayor Porter? We've just lost him. All right, then I'll ask Mayor Porter's question on his behalf.
Imagine that.
Not surprising. All right, Mayor Porter called me with 2 questions today. One is fairly technical, one's a little broader, so I'll start with the broader.
Go ahead.
The initial recommendation that the Planning Commission was working from, which was made by staff, was to, in some way, permit medical marijuana sales and growing in 2 locations, in the M1 district as well as in the MXD2 district. The Planning Commission, after much conversation, decided that MXD2 was not an ideal location and that the commercial districts, the C1 and the C2, were more appropriate. This was a source of a lot of conversation at that meeting. So
for both or just grow? I'm sorry.
This is mainly for sales. Grow is sort of a separate. Let's start with sales. because that was the question that Mayor Porter started with. I'm kind of restating your question, so feel free to jump in if you'd like, Bob. When it comes to where we would like to, being careful not to inadvertently sort of zone these businesses out of existence. That was not anyone's intent. We were trying to balance, some fair regulations with what was best for residents. Mayor Porter's question had to do with whether or not our main commercial district on Woodward Avenue was the best place for medical marijuana sales businesses, as opposed to the initial proposal of MXD2, which is the south end of Livernois, almost all of Hilton, and the far western end of Pinecrest.
Well,
so my question is mainly to you, my colleagues. I would like to hear your sort of side of the story or opinion on the topic. It was the thing that we discussed the most at the Planning Commission, was what type of space was most appropriate, where would it interact the least with residential districts, since we all expressed up here we didn't want it in residential districts, and what type of face, do we want to put out to the community?
Well, I have a question then, Councilwoman.
Sure.
Because you brought it up. These recommendations, do they not, they have their recommendations, so they don't recommend anything in neighborhoods, do they?
No. Other than personal, people can use
Right,
in their personal homes.
Right. So there's really no proposal to deal with neighborhoods or residential.
Well, that's where the question about what a mixed-use district is and what it's for comes in. Mixed-use districts
Sure,
were
people can live in mixed districts.
enacted to, encourage similar uses to cluster together. So residential as well as commercial uses often in the same building, like we have across the street at the Lofts on the 9. And they're often closer to residential districts without a parking buffer between the building and the residential neighborhood, as you often have on Woodward with our commercial districts.
So
These were the things that the Planning Commission was wrestling with. What is the appropriate distance, or what do we feel is the best location for the sales businesses, not talking about the growing businesses?
Okay, but aren't they all in here? Don't they have recommendations?
They do have recommendations, but Mayor Porter was asking us to reconsider those recommendations.
Well,
We wondered
how
if they
about
were
if someone shares what the recommendations are? Would that be helpful for the audience and the folks watching at home? Why don't we do that?
Your Honor, I'd be happy to do that. With respect to the medical marijuana facilities, the matter that was considered by the Plan Commission proposed that such uses be allowed in the MXD 2 and the M1 zone district. The Plan Commission's recommendation was to include that use in the C2 and C3 zone district as a special land use, so it would be authorized, may be permitted as a special land use. It also proposed that facility use be allowed, or may be allowed, as a special land use in the OS zone district, and continued the recommendation that such use be permitted in the M1 zone district and added M2 zone district. So with respect to that type of use, those were the recommendations of the Plan Commission.
All right, I'm sure now it's clear to everyone, but without a zoning map. But if I can clear up or try to, so the recommendations then are a little broader. The Planning Commission added a bit more with some special land use. They took some off?
It took MXD2 off.
All right,
So the purple zone's on Melanie.
So the Hilton corridor south of Livernois would no longer be an area where a special land use for this activity could be considered, and added a large portion of the Woodward corridor.
Okay. All right, so the one that's already grandfathered in then stays, even though that zone is no longer inclusive.
Correct.
And and I appreciate it.
Perhaps I'm being too technical. Perhaps Bob might ask his question now that he's back.
Well, certainly, Mayor Porter, if you want to ask any questions, I'm also trying to facilitate so that people at home and in the audience can understand. So we are now looking at, perhaps you're the zoning, you like this stuff. Why don't you share with the audience the areas that this Planning Commission is recommending in terms of description of the area?
All right. There's a lot of C2s here. C2, I'm going to start on the south side, is between Pinecrest on 8 Mile up to Edgewood is C2. North of here is off of 9 Mile between Pinecrest and Livernois is zoned C2. On Woodward, north is at Woodland to Breckenridge on Woodward, and then again ending at Breckenridge, and then starting again at Albany to Marshall. On the east side only, I'm sorry, on the west side, and then from Saratoga up to Webster. Thank you for helping me, Marcia.
All of Woodward except the central business.
All of Woodward except the central business district. And then C2 begins again on the east side between Paxton up to Faro on 9 Mile.
Okay, if I may, is it, so chunks of 9 Mile, not downtown, but just outside of the downtown on 9 Mile, and also Woodward, not right downtown, but on the outer fringes of Woodward. Those are the main areas for facilities, meaning dispensaries and
Sales, not growth.
sales.
As well as some sections of 8 Mile.
Okay. And the Planning Commission liked that idea as opposed to the Hilton and Livernois because
of the relative proximity to residential areas. They thought it was relatively more buffered than residential areas, and the character was relatively more commercial than residential.
Okay. And then what about, is there grow areas in these, among these ordinances? And what areas are they looking for?
Well, it was proposed in the M1 and M2 zone district with, as a special land use, and also proposed in the OS zone district as a special land use accessory to a medical marijuana facility, as long as the percentage of the grow operation did not exceed 20% of the usable floor space of the facility.
It's in the office zoning.
Oh, what is OS?
Office service.
And where is that?
It's the blue area. It's generally the easternmost border of the city along 8 and 9 Mile roads. Those small blue areas. It's a little scary, this map lives in my head, but I apologize, I forget sometimes it doesn't live in everyone's heads, so.
Okay.
And then M1 means limited industrial. So.
M1 is limited industrial?
And M2 is heavier industrial.
And heavier industrial. And so that is okay there. I appreciate it. Being colorblind, these maps are almost useless to me.
Forgot about that.
Are there questions regarding this from the table?
Can you clarify for me, Mr. Christ, about the use of terms? So I see here sales facility, we see sales, I see the word facility, and I see the word dispensary. Are those all one and the same type of facility?
I'm not sure where you see the word dispensary.
I guess that's come up in news articles, and everybody's calling it the medical marijuana
This
dispensary.
ordinance doesn't address dispensaries, which
Okay.
isn't provided for in the state act anyway.
Okay.
So this defines the term as medical marijuana facility.
Okay.
And it doesn't, you want me to just read the definition of how it's set forth?
Could you please?
It's very short. As council knows, there's several draft ordinances. 3 of them are proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance. There is a 4th ordinance proposed, which would be a regulatory ordinance outside of the zoning ordinance. The definition means definition of medical marijuana facility as proposed means a facility where the primary caregivers and/or qualified patients who are legally registered by the Michigan Department of Community Health may lawfully assist qualified patients as legally registered by the MDCH concerning the evaluation, counseling, and acquisition of medical marijuana in accordance with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act as amended. A youth purporting to be engaged in the medical use of marijuana prior to enactment of the Act or prior to being legally registered by the MDCH shall be deemed to not be a legally established use and not entitled to legal nonconforming status under the provisions of this ordinance and under state law. The facility shall not include a club, cafe, or other design that permits consumption of medical marijuana at the facility. Would you like me to juxtapose that with the proposed grow operation, or leave that for the moment?
I think that would be helpful for clarifying.
There is another proposal that arose during the context of the Plan Commission's discussion, which focused on a grow operation and what exactly that consisted of. And the proposed definition for a medical marijuana grow operation under these ordinances is defined to mean a use in accordance with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act as amended for the growing, cultivation, planting, and manufacturing of medical marijuana.
All right, and each of these four ordinances deal with a different part. So again, as far as process that I'm always interested in, we could take them one at a time once we're satisfied that people have asked questions. And there's a number of things in here. If folks would like to learn more, they can find this in the library, they can find it online. It talks about signage, hours of operation, for example, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There is licensing, and I'm going to want to talk about costs and license fees if that's appropriate tonight. So anyone from the audience that would like to request information before we move on to possible motions?
Possible to see the ordinances?
I'm sorry?
Is it possible to see them? Yeah, the ordinances? I can't hear him.
First of all, you got to speak at the microphone, and second of all, it's a little late right now to see the ordinance unless the clerk has made copies. No, they're available at the library. They're available online.
They weren't online, I don't think.
They're not online yet. The packets not available.
These were not in the packet.
Because the Plan Commission.
Planning Commission didn't meet.
You can certainly ask a question anyway, if you like. Well, I'm not sure you all have questions. So far, no one has come to the podium, so I'm about to move on.
Good evening. My name is Greg Polowski. I'm an ASA member, Americans for Safe Access, and also I represent a patient caregiver social connection. With all due respect, in 2005, the residents of Ferndale overwhelmingly supported and voted for medical marijuana. In 2008, the people of Michigan voted for medical marijuana with a 63% approval statewide, 74% here in Ferndale. The city of Ferndale has decided to act on behalf of its people, its community, and all its neighbors. And I will applaud, and while I applaud the city for acting, I asked the resident elected officials to slow down this current proposed medical marijuana ordinance in lieu of
Greg,
just...
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. Mr. Pulaski, is it Pulaski?
Yes.
This is the section of the meeting where you ask questions or request information from us.
Okay.
We are not at the point where we're actually debating any motion. It sounds like you're giving an opinion on something, but we haven't even moved towards anything yet.
Should I read this later then?
Probably.
Very good, thank you.
All right. This is a time of the meeting when you may ask questions, request information about what we're discussing.
Could you just restate where you recommended the grow facilities to be located?
I'm sorry,
the grow facilities.
Grow.
And just one point of clarification, a hydroponic versus a soil, and I don't know if your rules or regs may apply differently, because in a soil operation there's virtually no fluid waste that gets put in the sewer, whereas in a hydroponic there is. So I know in the last meeting there was some conversation about licensing requirements for a grow facility with respect to the water, and again, with respect to a soil operation, there is no wastewater. So,
Your Honor, would you like me to address his question?
Yes, I would, sir.
As proposed by the Plan Commission, a grow operation would be allowed as a special land use in the OS, which is the Office Service District of the city. However, it would be limited to being an accessory use where a medical marijuana facility was also at that location, and the grow operation would be limited to not more than 20% of the interior floor space of the structure or building. Additionally, the medical marijuana grow operation would be allowed to be considered as a special land use in the M1, which is the light industrial, and also the M2 general industrial zone districts.
And there's no floor space restrictions.
There is no floor space, and it's not accessory use. They would be permitted as
special use.
It's a special land use. They're both. It's not as. It's not permitted as of right. It's proposed by the Plan Commission to be special land use.
I just had a question because I went to 3 different computers and I couldn't find the file anywhere. Sorry, I've never spoken public either, but if we're here to, because I'm wondering what you're trying to change, and it's not out there. That's just what I'm saying.
Appreciate that question. We're actually not trying, well, we're trying to change the fact that we have a moratorium right now, which means no marijuana facilities may come into the city, and we are trying to adopt what we believe is the best type of ordinances on zoning to allow some medical marijuana facilities and grow operations to come into town. And so we're debating that right now, sections of town, zoning areas, et cetera.
I have actually read the proposed ordinance, and I do have a couple questions in regard to that. There is a section in there requiring facilities to maintain records of who is a patient, who is a caregiver, and exactly what quantity is available on hand at any given time. Attorney Chris, could you confirm that? And if possible, could you read that out loud to the audience so it's on record, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. When you say please, you get what you want.
Is this the, as proposed in the section regarding a necessary condition for a medical marijuana facility or grow operation to meet, the proposed language is that a medical marijuana facility or medical marijuana grow operation shall maintain a logbook identifying by date the amount of medical marijuana on the premises for each qualifying patient, keeping the qualifying patient information confidential, and each primary caregiver. This log shall be available to law enforcement personnel to confirm that the medical marijuana facility or medical marijuana grow operation does not have more medical marijuana than authorized at the location and shall not be used to disclose more information than reasonably necessary to verify the lawful amount of medical marijuana at the facility. The facility shall maintain the confidentiality of qualifying patients in compliance with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act as amended.
Okay, thank you for reading that in. I have a couple follow-up questions. First of all, earlier you'd mentioned that a medical marijuana facility is not actually a dispensary, therefore they're not allowed to distribute medical marijuana. Why would you need to keep a record of medical marijuana at a facility that does not distribute medical marijuana?
That's not what he said, sir.
I apologize then, please.
The word dispensary is not a legal term that is used in any of this information. So the facility is the dispensary.
That actually helps me understand much better. I did actually bring a copy of the zoning districts myself. I printed it offline. Could you please explain why C2 has an advantage over MXD2? I understand the concept of trying to get away from residential zones, but as I look at the C2, and certainly anybody can look at that as well, it's adjacent to R1 or R2 every single place it exists, with the very slim exception of a small area on Hilton. It is adjacent to the same residential areas that MXD2 is. So I wish we could get an explanation on the change on that, please.
I can speak to it if you'd like.
Please.
The Planning Commission was looking for areas that were the most buffered from residential areas and provided the most dedicated parking so that there would be enough access. Specifics about how parking is regulated are in these draft ordinances as well. And the discussion centered around 9 Mile Road and Woodward Avenue being sort of wider and more sort of readily acknowledged business corridors than Livernois and Hilton in many places. So it was a tough call because
They are so very similar, I'm sure.
because C2 in many places, we couldn't pick and choose and just say C2 on Woodward and not C2 somewhere else. So the commercial strip on Woodward is much more buffered from residential areas than it is along 8 Mile or 9 Mile, but we couldn't just pick one section of the zone and not the other.
Your Honor, if I could just expand on that, I think there was also some consideration by the Plan Commission that it was more consistent with the master plan, the city's master plan.
I'm sorry, more consistent with the city's master plan?
Correct.
Okay. As far as the follow-up on that, the M1, you did say that that would be allowed as a special land use, correct? Allowed in the M1 district?
Growing or a
Growing-
combination, growing sales or a combination.
But there was a restriction regarding percentage of floor space utilized, is that correct?
That's only in the OS district.
Only in the OS district?
In the office and service district, which is, again, similar to the C2 and adjacent to it, along 8 and 9 Mile roads. But again, they're slightly larger buildings in this area. You could have a combination of sales and growing, but there is a floor space restriction on the growing. There's no floor space restriction on the growing in the light industrial and heavier industrial district.
That certainly answers my questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, Councilwoman Baker, the Planning Commission put a lot of time and effort. These are experts. These are people who know the city very well. They know every neighborhood. They know
Architects and planners and developers.
They know the types of buildings. They are planners, and so they, this wasn't just throwing darts at a dartboard or something like that. Yes, sir.
How you doing? My name is Raymond Colville, resident in Ferndale for 11 years, and just had a couple things I'm a little worried about. The 8 Mile corridor, I live off of the 8 Mile corridor, and knowing about the budget cuts and the police cuts that are taking place right now, I'm just wondering if putting a care center on 8 Mile with the already high traffic of drug users and that being a corridor from the, John R. area and the state fairgrounds, if that's maybe something that, and I didn't understand all the terminology used with the different zones, but perhaps that 8 Mile corridor where the hotels are between Woodward and Livernois, I'm just curious if that is included as the place where there will be retail sales, and if there is.
Question. Could one of you answer the question?
That is currently included. One of the other pieces of this recommendation that was part of the initial recommendation, which has been online, was that facilities need to be at least 500 feet from each other, as well as from schools and daycare centers.
My concern isn't so much with that, and I completely understand that. My concern more is with perhaps armed robberies and the police force being having to cut down their hours, that perhaps them having to go there to take care of an armed robbery or somebody maybe being shot because of because you're talking about a commodity that has a high value on the street, and although it is used medically, you are going to have other people who perhaps don't want to use it for medical reasons.
All right, is this a question you're asking us? Because we're not asking for, opinions.
So it is part of the zoning. I guess then you did answer my question.
Yes.
Thank you.
C2. Let me just remind the audience that at the table today, we could adopt this in its entirety. We also can make changes. We can also table it. So we're appreciating your input, and there will be time very shortly for input. Let's ask, and we'll finish up the request for information with Chief Collins, if I may, sir. As the Planning Commission went through this process, and we know you have certain concerns, as is your job as police chief, but did you have any input on this? What we're talking about?
I was at the Planning Commission meeting as well, Your Honor. Are you talking about the zoning aspect of it?
Yes, sir.
I did. many questions were asked, and I tried to answer them as best I could. Gave no specific opinion as to just not having the expertise as to where the zoning would be, but I did prefer that any grow operations we had our concerns with security, we had our concerns with environmental issues, and we had concerns with some of the locations in the downtown area. And on Woodward Avenue, but they talked about it for a very, very, very long time, and they came up with their recommendations from the table.
Ms. Councilwoman Baker, so did you say that if you select a certain section of C2s, that all C2s have to be you can't just say C2s on 9 and not on 8?
That's my understanding.
All right.
And it was the understanding of the Planning Commission.
And does special land use mean that each and every one of these still has to get voted on?
Yes. But
Okay.
they would all be reviewed by the Planning Commission, and they would then come to
Every
council.
single, so the Planning Commission could conceivably turn one up and turn one down.
Depending on the suitability of their application.
They have to follow whatever
They have
the
to
law
follow a
says.
security plan and
Sorry.
several site plans.
Ms. Scheer?
I just have a question for the city attorney. Is it possible to do a medical marijuana overlay district?
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
Certainly, I guess it's possible that something like that could be considered. It was not discussed by the Plan Commission at all, was not proposed as a template for the Plan Commission's consideration.
But it could clearly define areas within C2 that council maybe did want to consider or didn't want to consider by defining those areas.
That would require further consideration, and
Sure.
it would be my recommendation that were council inclined to go that way, that it be referred back to the Plan Commission.
A question to the CDS director. Does an overlay district need to be contiguous?
I don't believe so.
No.
When the,
Certainly an option.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Would an overlay district be still subject to special land use? So those steps would still be in place?
Right.
What the
But it would
CD
give you a more incisive control over the exact areas within the city that council felt were appropriate for medical marijuana dispensaries.
You could select block by block almost.
Chief, did you hear the gentleman talk about 8 Mile, and is that of any special concern, or do we equally?
I think you'll find that it's more, there's a lot of different theories that go on here. So, I mean, keeping them away, my concern was to the Planning Commission was to at least have the greatest buffer from any schools and any of the neighborhoods that we possibly can. Now, of course, the way the city is set up and the way it was planned, this is obviously wasn't something that was conceived. So we have to, in fact, the overlay system, the overlay idea actually has a lot of merit in my opinion, because you could define some of the areas that were in C2 that you don't necessarily want would be not as conducive as maybe the next door neighbor, depending on how close to the neighborhood, how close to other type of things that we didn't consider before. So I think it does give you more control. But as far as the 8 Mile area goes in specific, no, not really. Anywhere these facilities will have the same dangers that they would be anywhere. And when I say dangers, I don't mean that they're particularly dangerous. I mean that they have the possibility of being robbed, the possibility of being broke into. If they are dispensing medical marijuana, they're going to have the same, as long as they're doing it under the guise of what the state law actually says. They're only dispensing medical marijuana to their patients that are connected to them through that caregiver. So I don't see that, as long as they're doing that, I don't see that that's going to be a big issue. Okay. It's the ones where if we get somebody in there that's not following the rules, that's where we have to be more concerned.
So a bank that's on 8 Mile is no more at risk than a bank on Livernois or a bank on 9 Mile?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thanks.
I have one more question for the chief. Chief, do you think that the regulations that we've put in place here help the city manage medical marijuana facilities that are not in compliance?
Yeah, we have, I haven't seen the final draft that has been submitted. I got mine off the internet too. But I was intimately involved in the preparation of it. I just didn't see the final written document. I sincerely believe that what has been proposed, I think, still has got some debate left in it before we're ready to pass, but that's my personal opinion. I think if we're going to do this, we should do it correctly and right and make sure that we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed. So I would like to see and deal with the ordinance committee a little bit more to make sure that we have everything that we need. I think we have a good start. I think everything that we've put into this so far has the compassion for the people that actually need this, as well as controls to make sure that nefarious folks aren't using this as some way to get whoever wants marijuana.
Yeah, appreciate that. You said ordinance committee, is that, you meant?
I mean, that's my suggestion. I mean, obviously this is the call of council, but I think that we've made a lot of efforts and a lot of inroads to where we need to be, but I don't know if we're exactly there yet.
Thanks, Chief. All right, is there any interest in moving along then in terms of, you have 4 ordinances here. Go ahead.
In your current...
You have to speak at the microphone.
I'm sorry. In your current industrial zoning, do you allow for the manufacture of medical products?
I'm sorry.
In your current industrial zoning, does it allow for the manufacture of medical products?
I know M2 does.
And the follow-up question is, are you familiar and do you have an opinion on the Michigan Right to Farm Act, which would restrict your ability to ordinance that away? Thank you.
I don't know what the Michigan Right to Farm Act is. We're looking for the answer there.
Your Honor, with respect to his first question, the industrial district does provide for manufacturing, processing, packaging, assembling type operations.
Chemical, biological, medicinal, cosmetic, and pharmaceutical projects. Special land use in M1 and M2. So yes is special land uses when it comes to medical manufacturing.
I didn't hear his I didn't quite hear am I familiar with the Right to Farm Act? The answer is yes. I didn't quite hear the other part of his question as it relates to that.
If I can remember correctly, I believe the council did say that there was no social smoking at these facilities. Is that correct?
As proposed.
Okay. My question is that there are a lot of patients out there that cannot medicate in their home for various reasons. If it is a private club with membership that is exclusively with medical marijuana patients with their caregiver card or their patient card, and that's the exclusive right for them for their membership, well, why can't I not go to a private club and medicate in a private facility where they can do this in a safe manner, responsible, and then go back to their homes? There are instances where they cannot do that, such as if they live in an apartment or if they live in federal funding housing developments or areas. They are not permittable to do that, and they can be evicted out of their premises. Those are some of the issues that I have. So I just wanted to make that very clear to you guys and also see where you guys felt about that, because like I said, if it is a private club or a private facility where the patients can do that and it is a safe environment and we can protect them, that's what I want. That's the question, why they can't do that. Thank you.
Did the Planning Commission, I'm sure you did discuss the idea of facilities where folks can use the materials?
It was discussed. It was an area that was perceived to be, the chair of the Planning Commission is the director of planning in West Bloomfield, I believe. She's been digging into this a lot, and it was believed by several members of the Planning Commission that this was a particularly gray area in the law. I don't know if Dan has any additional comments on that, but.
Well, I mean, it was discussed and considered, I believe, by the Planning Commission. they did not seek to adopt that concern as raised by the speaker, that they specifically added additional language to make sure that the clarity of the issue was that use at such a facility was not allowed.
Correct. All right, so in there, in the proposal, it is not permitted, and it is a gray area with the state. Again, we can come back at any time and change these or
If I can remember correctly, I do think Commissioner Zara did mention that it was private when she was reading back the state statute, that was her concern. Her point was that it was a private club or a private area for people to do that in. So, like I said, the Commissioner did actually raise that point on Thursday's meeting.
Well, it's an emerging area of law that we'll deal with at some point about private clubs that may occur or pop up.
Method of transportation home would be a concern of mine.
That'd be a concern, sure.
You know,
This could be addressed.
it's so gray, you know, I mean, how you getting home?
Well, there's the issue, yeah. There's a lot of issues that we're still trying to work through. State prohibits smoking, and yet eating is a different method of ingesting. So, you know, I don't know how the smoking ban plays into this topic either. What is the pleasure of council in terms of moving forward tonight? Are there any or all of these ordinances that we might want to move forward on?
I have a question about the timeline of the moratorium that Councilwoman
Why don't you
Piana
ask that question?
initiated. Planning Commission, if we were to refer this back to the Planning Commission, doesn't meet until September 16th, and the following council meeting would be September 27th, which I believe is outside of the 3-month moratorium that we discussed. So we would need to extend that if we wanted to send this to the Planning Commission for refinement, be it an overlay district or other discussion. Am I correct? Is that?
Yes, it's the moratorium was 3 months. The date it was passed by council was June 14th, so September 13th or 14th is when the moratorium, as resolved by council, would expire unless otherwise some other actions taken by council.
Does anybody have a problem with ordinance 1096, the very first one?
What do you mean, problem?
Well, I mean, does that need to be referred back? That's just defining,
Is that the definitions?
yeah, the definition of facility and grow operation.
Yeah, I would just share that I appreciate the idea of tabling, but I don't know that it's necessary. I think we can always go back and tweak and make changes if we want. I'd like to move forward, but I'm not able to make motions.
I'm definitely comfortable approving the uses that were put forward by the Planning Commission in the M1, M2, and OS districts. If there was will at the table to go back and examine an overlay district, which I think is a great idea when it comes to our commercial zones, I would be willing to work that into the ordinance, but there was no question among the Planning Commission that M1, M2, and OS were appropriate for what they were recommended for.
I appreciate that, and I like your idea, Councilwoman Baker. What we would need is motions of such. There's 4 ordinances here listed.
4 pieces.
Councilwoman Piana, what do you?
I really appreciate Kate's compromise here, allowing us to move forward and end the moratorium in order to allow this type of business to establish itself in Ferndale, but also balances the concerns of the residents who have suggested C2 needs more scrutiny. And I really love the interesting idea of an overlay for us to explore that. And I think that is a very good option for C2. So good compromise, I think.
I agree with both of them.
All right, so then can someone begin to craft our process here tonight?
I would propose that we adopt, and I would look to you for guidance if I've missed any pieces that should be retracted, Dan, but I would move that we adopt ordinance number 1096, ordinance number 1097, and ordinance number 1099 in their entirety as stated. and that we adopt ordinance number 1098 with the following retraction to be further refined at the Planning Commission's September meeting. Retracting in section 4.02 uses, the following sentences. A medical marijuana facility may be permitted as a special land use in the C2 General Commercial District and the C3 Extended Business District. A medical marijuana grow operation shall be prohibited in these districts.
So, Councilwoman, you're moving the adoption of all four in 1098, the removal of the two lines you mentioned, referring them back to the Planning Commission for possible further discussion and perhaps coming back with an overlay.
Yes.
But the bulk of that is passed, and all three other ordinances are passed, and the moratorium is declared at an end.
If I have a second.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Madam Clerk, did you get all that?
I believe so, Your Honor.
I think you did as well. Opinions? Sharing your thoughts? No, that's fine.
I'd like to thank Dan and the city clerk and Marcia Schreier with the CDS department and the police chief for working on this. It is clear that all cities in Michigan are struggling with defining how to deal with medical marijuana facilities in their city. And many cities have put on moratoriums to study this issue. And I really feel Ferndale is one of those communities that is leading the way, as well as the city of Ann Arbor and the city of Traverse City. And MML is helping communities as well. And I know that I have shared our hard work here with MML and our city of Hazel Park to help them craft their own ordinances. So I think we're doing some leading stuff here, and I appreciate the mayor for agreeing with the moratorium. I know that you weren't necessarily an opinion of that at the time, so I think, though, we have done the right thing. We've taken our time to look at this and to protect, again, going back to why we need the moratorium, is to protect the businesses who want to establish a medical marijuana facility or a grow facility, to protect the neighborhoods and residents who have concerns, and ensure that we are accommodating all of the concerns and questions of the staff who have to help administer and enforce our ordinance. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman, anything?
Just to ask that as the city clerk has created a website for us that is very updatable and flexible when it comes to our agendas, if these updated proposals that we've just discussed could be linked in to our minutes in the appropriate way so that people can access them as soon as the minutes are posted. And also, just apologies for jumping into the middle of the technical stuff. I'm sorry, sometimes my brain gets ahead of me and the zoning part of my brain turns on. So
Well, we know that
apologies. Thanks for backing me up. And
zoning is fun. as you
Zoning
always
is
tell me.
fun.
Well, I want to thank Councilwoman Piana for being the smart voice that counseled us to slow down a little. I want to thank Councilwoman Baker, who sat through a 5-hour Planning Commission meeting, as well as the staff and all the members of the Planning Commission. These are very progressive, hardworking folks who are a part of the fabric of the city of Ferndale. I think we've made some history today. I thank the staff, the city attorney particularly. I'm sure there'll still be lots of questions. It's not perfect, but we are involved in emerging law. We are making change. And once again, I think the city of Ferndale will be on the map and in the news. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Council members Piana.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
And Mayor Covey.
Yes, passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Council liaison reports, if any.
The meeting is almost done. If you'd like to leave, you may. You may please leave quietly. Otherwise, we're almost done. Liaison reports. Anything from the 8 Mile Boulevard?
I have an update from the Millennial Mayor's Congress,
Sure.
which is a subsidiary of the Michigan Suburbs Alliance. Just to let everyone know that I'm on the executive committee because I apparently can't say no when asked to volunteer for things. And we met on Saturday morning at U of D. The executive committee had a great discussion reviewing a survey that's been circulating, looking for opinions from the millennial generation, which is loosely defined as people under the age of 35, although anyone was welcome to take this survey, about the things that they like and don't like about our region, the things that draw them here and the things that they would like to see improved. We have a good sample so far, but it's not a scientific survey, but we would certainly like to see more participation. The survey is available on the Millennial Mayors Congress website, which you can link to through the Michigan Suburbs Alliance website, which is, Melanie, help me out. Your website, Michigan Suburbs Alliance?
Suburbsalliance.org.
Thank you. We will also be working with several local universities to distribute and get some more responses, so I should be able to report back soon.
Super.
Some interesting information.
So millennials or anyone under 35?
Loosely
I think you've raised that age a couple of times, Councilwoman.
I like to stay under the bar.
I know you want to stay in that generation. Very good. The Woodward Avenue Action Association installed and cut the ribbon for the second of the tributes.
In Pontiac, right?
Very recently. A friend of mine saw it. She said it was really neat. She liked it a lot. There's an Indian representing the Pontiac, the Chief of Pontiac, and some other things that have to do actually with the city of Pontiac. So that's tribute number 2. You might want to get up there to see that. And the South Oakland County Mayors Association has its annual or monthly dinner meeting coming up. City Manager Bruner, you've sent that out, and all of the council members are welcome to come to that. That's at Como's. I would encourage you to come and meet some of the other mayors. Any other liaison reports there? Madam Clerk, are we to call the council?
We are indeed, Your Honor.
Marcia Shear, anything else from the... You have a good weekend? Yeah, well. Chief Collins.
Mr. Honor, I just want to report on the Dream Cruise. As you well know, we had a little bit of rain over the weekend. It was one of the calmest, safest Dream Cruises on record. No arrests, no traffic accidents, very few traffic violations written, about the same amount of parking violations written. So all in all, it was a very calm and good event. I would like to, though, thank some of the agencies that gave us a hand during the event. The Detroit Police Department Reserves came down in force and gave us a hand with the crossing at 9 and Woodward, as well as the closing. The Oakland County Sheriff's Department and the Oakland County Sheriff's Department Reserves were down here. They did some foot patrol for us, and they also assisted us at the crossing. We had 2 mounted officers here, and they did some crowd control and some sweeps on the median. Of course, the Ferndale Police Auxiliary, who were instrumental, as always, with the closing and with the foot patrol. And we also had the Macomb County Mounted Division here as well on Friday night for the emergency car show. So thanks to all those folks for all the help. We couldn't do it without them. And also, of course, thanks our own people that also gave up their Friday and Saturdays that worked all that detail. So it was a very good, safe event.
No accidents, no arrests, no fights?
No, nothing.
Wow.
It was, like I say, it was the quietest one. I think that, and we keep those tallies every year. Royal Oak requests them for their press release on Sunday morning, and I have to believe that this was the quietest one on record.
And it also costs less money from the police department.
Yes, about 1/3 less money we expended this year than we have in years past. Thank you, sir. And lastly, we're going to be doing a press release in the near future about the Drug Enforcement Administration has requested our assistance to participate in the prescription drug drop-off program, where folks that have expired prescriptions or prescriptions from folks that are no longer in the household. These drugs many times can get in the hands of youths. They also are disposed of improperly and get into landfills, and they can cause other environmental problems. Therefore, the DEA on the 25th of September Ferndale Police Department will be a designated drop-off point. We will have folks here to pick up or to take those prescription drugs, and they will be disposed of under state and federal laws.
Is it just a one-time shot, or?
This is the first time that we've been asked to participate, so
it's just that day?
It's just one day. This will be one day, but it's going to be region-wide, so we won't be the only drop-off point.
Okay.
Many other areas will be doing this.
That.
We hope to participate in any one that they ask us to. I believe this is a very important area. People don't realize that prescription drugs are one of the most, if not the most, abused drugs in the nation, and this does get them, some of them, out of the hands of folks that could use them in the wrong way. Other than that, I thank council for the appointment this evening, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief. Byron Fotides, DPW Director, what do you have to share?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Your folks did a great job cleaning up the city and fixing things up and reopening 9 Mile.
Well, I know when the Dream School started in '95, we told our crews that we wanted everybody to think as if the crews had not been there the next morning, and we've always tried to keep that up.
It looked great. Good job. Let's give them a round of applause. Fire Chief still there? There he is. Chief Sullivan, anything else you'd like to share for us tonight?
We did have one serious injury during the weekend on early Friday morning. Intoxicated male crawled up the rock climbing device without any safeties on and plummeted. That's a severe head injury. So we're probably going to have to look at securing private vendors things better in the future.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I'd like to invite any of the citizens, anyone, to join our Ferndale CERT, Citizens Emergency Response Training. We have the website set up, Ferndale CERT, at ferndalefirerescue.org. I'm going to try and get it onto our Ferndale website so that they can contact us, and hopefully we'll be firing that up in the fall there once we get our training and a proper way to train CERT people. Although we have the expertise, we need to know specifics for CERT. So we'll be looking at doing that. And then other than that, everything else is going really well. Thank you for the
Very
appointment.
good. Thanks, Chief. Clerk Tallman.
I received notice from the governor's office today and from the Attorney General's office last week that our resolution for the ballot proposal has been approved by the state. It's been forwarded to the county for inclusion on the November 2nd ballot.
This is to change the reporting requirements of the
charter amendment.
appointees.
Yes, that's
So that'll be
correct.
on the ballot. Very good. Anything else? Okay, and we did send reps to the school board talking about the idea of moving the elections to November.
I'm sorry I didn't report on that because I was unfortunately out of town. But yes, that is finally got some action by the Ferndale School Board. They have referred it to committee for further consideration. That's certainly the most positive action we've seen from them on the issue of moving their school board elections to a regular November general election with the city offices.
Yeah, for folks watching on the show tonight, tens of thousands of dollars could be saved of your tax dollars if the school board elections were moved from May to November. And at that meeting, you had very good representation. Marnie, your assistant, was there, did a great job. There were clerks from all the cities. Councilwoman Piana was there, myself, we did a very good job.
Well, thank you all.
City Attorney Christ.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Nothing else, sir. Manager Bruner.
Just some congratulations and thanks. Congratulations to Chief Collins and Chief Sullivan. We've obviously been working together the last several months. Looking forward to working with you both on a indefinite basis now. Also want to thank City Attorney Marcia Scheer, Police Chief, and the Plan Commission for their consideration of the marijuana ordinances. This is something that staff's been pursuing very aggressively in the last several months to try to meet the deadline, which is why some other things have been languishing on the back burner, but we'll get to those too. And finally, regarding the Dream Cruise, many thanks to the city employees who make it possible, everybody from Michael Larry, our Dream Cruise Director, Department of Public Works, Police Department, Fire Department. The city spends very little money on the Woodward Dream Cruise directly because so much of it is paid for by Ford Motor Company and other major sponsors. but especially a big thanks to all the volunteers that are involved. I can't pretend to know them all, but you saw them out on the streets with the orange T-shirts, and hopefully we can bring some back for some recognition in the future. But it's a huge volunteer effort that makes it all happen, and I hope folks enjoyed it despite the rain.
Nice. Thanks, Mr. Bruner. Councilwoman Piana, anything?
I'm going to pass at this time. I'm good.
Councilman Lennon.
Nothing other than I would like to announce a retirement party for former Ferndale Police Chief Mike Kitchen, Thursday, September 9th, 2010, 6 to 9 p.m. at Boogie Fever Cafe. There'll be food and drink. That's food provided by Dino's Lounge and Catering.
Wow, at Boogie Fever. And that donation goes to a charity?
$30 charitable donation.
All right. Very good. You'll be there?
Yeah.
And yeah, get your shirt for the Dream Cruise. DDA
Got it.
has it. DDA has
She
it.
was here, she left. Where's my shirt?
Yeah, well.
I was on a trip. I couldn't make it.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you. In addition to the quick work of the city attorney in turning the motion, the very lengthy motion which I made at the Planning Commission meeting, into some coherent legal documents for us this evening. A thank you to CDS Director Marcia Shear for her work until 12:30 a.m. I don't know if you guys saw the timestamp on that email that she sent very early Friday morning. She was here a good hour later than the rest of the Planning Commission, typing up our notes to make sure that Dan had the information he needed to turn the gibberish into legalese. Our police chief has also been extremely helpful as we've been navigating these waters when it comes to medical marijuana, and particularly his sense of fairness and of wanting to represent the will of the voters in Ferndale. There are some cities that have simply said, no, we're not allowing this at all. Those ordinances are now, as predicted, very quickly being challenged in court. So I'm pleased that our city staff saw fit to try and find a middle ground, if you will, or a middle way, and protect the interests of business owners as well as residents. I think that is probably about it.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, we have a resolution from the City of Royal Oak basically going to the state of Michigan saying, please, state of Michigan, let cities begin to deal with the open carry law so that cities don't have to go through what Royal Oak went through, which was to be forced to allow people to carry guns at the Arts, Beats, and Eats. So if I may pass this down to the city clerk, anybody mind if we bring that to Ferndale and pass a similar resolution? Perhaps?
Maybe.
Sending it to the state? Because I'm waiting for them. They'll come to the Gay Pride Festival and say, we want the right to carry guns, and it's causing me dissonance. St. James Parish, we'd like to do a letter up to recognize Father Worm's 50th anniversary. I want to recognize the anniversary of the Bosco. They just had an anniversary. Mr. Haberman, congratulations to you, sir. And the last thing I want to do is go to the city manager and say, have we had any major progress yet on employee labor negotiation concessions?
No.
No?
No.
All right. Well, again, this is going to be more difficult to pass any possible millage in February or the spring, asking the voters of Ferndale to pay higher taxes if we aren't able to get some sort of concessions from some of the big unions.
Well, let me correct myself. Mr. Sheehan did call me today, and we're in the process of scheduling a meeting. So,
well, I have faith. I have faith in our the men and women in blue and black, because all of us have taken cuts, and we need to share the pain. And then I suspect the voters of Ferndale will come through and possibly consider raising their taxes in order to keep our city safe. Just to share that once again this past year, 10% of taxable value fell throughout Metro Detroit. East Point has lost 20% of its taxable value, Lathrop Village 20%, Harper Woods 16%, On and on and on. The city of Troy lost $3 million because of lower tax values. The good news is your taxes may go down a little bit. The bad news is your cities are broke. That being enough for tonight, we had a good meeting. Thanks to all who attended and watched from home on television, and we're here tonight. This meeting's adjourned.